This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. How's everybody doing today? Happy Tuesday from the land of sin, New Orleans. What's up, playa? What's going on?
You said hi everyone. You didn't mention your team 2 in a row.
That's right. That's right. Every squirrel finds a nut.
As Eddie Jordan once said, yes, Scott Jackson's favorite quote.
Are they like pissed that they've won 2 in a row? How they do it up there?
They're still
okay?
the 2-game win streak. They're still the worst team in the league. Everything's fine. It's all fine.
Plan by is still a lot, right?
Yeah. Plan is by 4 games. By 4 games. I think the Jazz have 11 wins. They have now 7. Or 8.
Wow. Good for them. Bang up job, guys. Bang up job. Anyway, all right, let's get to the news. I'll start hopefully having some guests tomorrow from Radio Row. But let's get to the news, which is Josh Harris held a press conference yesterday, end of season press conference. Boy, times have changed when that's happening, that you've got the owner alone up on stage saying, have at it, ask me anything you want. So things are different now. And there were really only 2 topics that I thought were newsworthy and came up over and over and over and over. Most about the stadium, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but the name, it's not going anywhere. So, I was not reporting anything. I should probably address this for a second. I was not reporting anything last week. I don't know how I ended up getting kind of cycled through the news that way. If anyone actually just listened to the whole show, all I did was, I did say the name was not going to change or like unlikely to, but I didn't know that they weren't going to do it. But I didn't think they were, because I hadn't heard a person say a thing about it for a year. And the only time it's ever even popped up, and it's not that I ever asked, but whenever I heard anyone bring it up, they just said, it's just the way they put it was, it is just not high on the priority list. Like, it's not there. It's not coming there. But the other thing I had heard, I said, if people do talk about anything, it's maybe tweaking the uniforms. Maybe. I wasn't reporting anything. And so I don't know. I got I don't care. You guys can put me through a news cycle if you want. I would prefer the accuracy. And people were like, I got a lot of texts over the last few days, and I stayed off of posting anything because I'm like, no one paid any attention to the context in the first place. So what's the point of trying to say, I didn't report that they're changing anything? Like, someone took a headline from the podcast where I said exactly what I just said. If something were to happen, that's what I heard might happen down the road, and I don't know when. And that got turned into, I'm reporting this thanks to the bots. So,
right.
But it was mainly confirmed yesterday. So at least my intuition and speculation is on point. So I appreciate that I wasn't wrong. And so the headline is, the name isn't going anywhere. And I've received a lot of messages just from people who were, maybe you got this too, who were seemingly angry at me for just telling you that that's what it is. Yeah. As if I have any say or sway in that decision at all, which I don't. So I just want to make that clear too. I don't have any say in any of that. This is what the team is doing. I'm just telling you what they're doing. Don't be mad at me about it.
I have been on sports Twitter since 2010. I've been in radio since 2013. I have never had more negative things thrown at me than just passing along what I've heard from you, from other people, just saying They have said the name is not going to ever go back to the old one. First off, that's the one where people will...
that part I can report to you. That's not happening.
Correct. And when you say that, people are insulted. Certain people, not everybody, obviously. And I'm telling you, the stuff I get when I say that stuff is so ridiculous. And so I'm with you. The things that are just being misconstrued with this team when it comes to the name, the branding, there's a little bit of nuance here that people don't understand either. Like, they're never going back to that name. It doesn't mean they can't change the look. If they change the look, it doesn't mean they're going back to that. Like, there needs to be a check of some of the people that are like so on board with going back to the old ways. It's not happening. It's not ever happening. And because I'm saying that right now, I'm going to get, Joe54321 on Twitter to tweet at us that we're wrong or that we're woke or something like that. All we're doing is passing along what we know.
Right. Like a lot of the messages were, stop being woke. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm not. Like, I liked the old name too. If you want to go listen to the old shows, you'll hear me talk about how I liked the old name. And I defended it for years and years. I defended it and said it was never intended to be taken the way it was. So, guys, those of you who want it back, I'm with you on that part. However, I live in the real world where it's not happening, and I understand why. And so, sorry, all I'm doing is telling you, you want access to the team. I just gave it to you. Every conversation I've ever had with anybody who is in any position to do something about this has told me that is not happening ever. Now, on changing the name itself to something else, whether it's, I don't even want to speculate because then people are going to say I said the name.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I'm not even going to say one, okay? Because that's what happened last week was people took something I said that was speculative, that was not fact-informed, was not reporting anything, and put it out there that I reported it. Fortunately, it is very accurate, but it was speculation and it was never meant to be like taken as a report. I can tell you for a fact the name Redskins is not coming back. Not ever coming back. But like, could another name come? I suppose. But what Josh Harris said yesterday was exactly what I've been saying about the name all along. It's not high on their priority list. They have no intention of doing it. There's a lot of reasons why. One, it's expensive. Two, they'd have to get it right again. And we've learned from this one, that's going to be hard to do. You're not going to please everybody. There is a faction of people that think you're woke if you don't go back to Redskins. And that's not happening. You're never going to please them. That loud minority group that wants it back, no matter it's that or nothing. You're never, ever, ever going to please them. And three, like, it's a process that is arduous. And they're in the middle of a lot of different things right now, which was described at length by Josh Harris yesterday. So all I'm telling you is it's not changing. So I'm not surprised that when it was addressed yesterday, and I'm glad that Steve Wino, because John Keim asked him about it, and he didn't really answer the question. And I was glad that when Wino followed up, he said, just to be clear, you're not changing this name, right? And he said, no, we're not. So send me all your weird emails again if you want to. I'm just telling you what they're doing. And now he said it. And I actually think just drop it. Like, because that's it. It's not changing. Sorry if that hurts some of your feelings. I know it draws a massive reaction. Don't be mad. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, there's multiple layers of this one too. It's also, winning does solve everything. And look at what they did in year one. And for the people that are like, oh, that's why people are going to go to games because of the name change. I'm sorry, they were named the Redskins, for all those years, and people weren't going to games because they sucked. So you can't have it both ways on this argument. Like, I saw Keim going back and forth a little bit on Twitter last night or yesterday, where he was like, they were 6-3 in 2018 and the stadium was still empty because everyone knew the other shoe was going to drop. The name didn't make a difference then. What makes you think it's going to make a difference now if they start winning with all of the layers that come through? And John's exactly right. I remember not being pumped at all about that 6-3 before Alex Smith ended up going down. We didn't think it'd go down like that, but that's what ended up happening. What I do love about this too is this is Josh Harris finally just drawing the line in the sand too. And he's going, you know what? This is your opportunity. I'm here to tell you that the name is going to be here. And if that's your difference maker, no hard feelings. You can get out of here, essentially. Like, this is very much a, like, you're either with us or you're in the way type situation, like Mike Rizzo said way back in the day. I like that the line has finally just been drawn of, stop thinking that we're going to possibly go back to the old name. Stop waiting for another name to drop. Just start supporting us if you like us. And if you don't, this is just the way it is. So go ahead and make your choice. I like that there has just been a line drawn in the sand now at this point.
Yeah. I thought, I was glad he was clear, because in fact, like, it was the first question and he wasn't. All he was clear about was he was just like, it's not happening now, which is what I think rekindled this whole idea. Well, that means it could happen later, which I suppose hasn't really changed. And he does keep reiterating, the fans will tell us what they want to do. And when I get to the stadium part of this, that was something he kept kind of reiterating as well, that the fans are guiding us to where we should go, be, what they want, et cetera, et cetera. But like, when it comes to the name thing, he's just basically saying, I know there's a faction of you that wants something that isn't going to happen. And I know that there's a lot of you that don't like this current name, but it's growing on us, right? It's like his position was, the name means something different in the building now. So we're hoping you all will understand that and want to be part of that. I think, like, I'm not really sure I understand anymore. Like, what do you want them to change it to if it's not going to be Redskins?
Right.
That's the part I don't quite. I think everybody, this is what I think is happening, because the reaction to it last week was outrageous. Like, I'm underselling how many people reached out and said things to me that were just, some of it was just curiosity. Some of it was, come on, tell me what's going on. And some of it was the weird, you're woke and it should be Redskins and it should be that forever. And I'm like, I can't wade in this. This is just not my bag. Like, I can't, I'm just telling you what I know. And that's it. Sorry you don't like it. What are you yelling at me about? I'm not the president of the team. Like, I have no say in the change of it. So I don't like, they're not asking me my opinion on it. So I have no say in it. I don't know what you're even getting into it with me about.
I think there's like three main buckets of the fans at this point. It's people, what we call them, Redskins forever people. That's that or nothing, right? It is the people that think if they become the Washington Warriors or something similar, they go back to the old branding. I think there's those people that are holding on hope to that. And then I think there are people that just don't like Commanders, and that's okay. Like, I'm like, you, out of all of them, if you're just the ones that don't like Commanders, but you're still supporting the team, whatever. I'm cool with you. Like, does it incite a good reaction with me either? Not really, but I don't really care that much either. So I think those are, like, to me, the three main buckets right now. And I can tell you, they're never going to go back to the Native American imagery. I will say the old look I've said to you for literally since 2222, that'll be a throwback one day. Like, I knew that the second they launched that's going to be a throwback one day. And I don't know when, but like, Nike does that. And they'd be dumb not to print up those jerseys again. Like, that's just, it prints money. Like, I've been saying that I'm not reporting anything either. I've been saying that for 3 years, that they're going to eventually get back to that look as a bare minimum and alternate. So for those first two bucket of people, though, you're not going to get what you want. And so that's why I liked what Harris did yesterday, because he's basically saying, this is how it is, get used to it. And what I thought was great too is he went and doubled down saying, internally, this is how we feel, the coaches, the players. He didn't mention the fans. He didn't mention the fans, which irked some people that he didn't mention that. But I thought it was important for him to say internally, because you know what happened all this year? We, the fan base, started mimicking what they did inside too. Remember, you were saying, don't get on the roller coaster, like Dan Quinn was telling you after the Bengals game. And everyone started saying, being a little bit more calm, then thinking they could go toe-to-toe with some of these big teams. I think Harris also realizes this team was so good last year, the fan base is latching on to what they do. Some of them, not all of them. And if he's saying, if coaches and players are on board, you should be on board too.
Yeah, I should have read some of the emails I got. I mean, they were so absurd. Some of the ones
Could
that I got.
have gone full Tony mailbag over there. We should have done that.
They were like some of them, and I like, I'm nice. I like to respond to everybody, but this even got to the point where a couple of them, I'm like, I'm not going to respond to you because there's going to be no talking to you about this. Like, I can already tell there's no talking to you. And I agree with you. There's these different buckets, but I will say that middle bucket of wants Warriors, wants some kind of imagery. Those people, the undercurrent is for them. They'd like to see it go back to Redskins, but they don't want to say that. And that's just not going to happen. So I'm just screaming at the wind by talking about it. And, like, I'm glad he cleared it up. And I'm also glad that my speculation wasn't off. Yeah. I am glad about that because I laid low after this because I'm not going to sit there and get into an argument with Twitter. Like, Twitter took something I said and spun it into a report when it wasn't. And it was really just informed speculation. And, I was just going off of what was said last week on other shows where they were speculating the name was changing. And I'm just like, it isn't. And I'm glad that Josh Harris cleared that up. And I think for everybody, because it does trigger people, to just say it and get it over with is better off. And I thought last week, the people who were reporting that a name change was potentially coming, I would just want to know where they got that from because it felt a little, because of how triggering it is, I felt it was a little irresponsible to put that out there unless you had a real source telling you that, which you clearly don't because it's not happening, right? Like, so it was so counter to everything that I'd heard that I was like, I think I just need to say something publicly about this. But, and I shouldn't have done the but because the but is what really got me in trouble. But what I have heard people casually talk about in a speculative form was they might tweak the jerseys a little bit. And I don't know if that's this year, next year, whenever, but that's the thing that pops up that they're like, they never did change the colors. Although if you look at the uniforms now, for some reason, it just doesn't look like the same colors to me. I don't know why. They tell me over and over it's the same color palette, but it just, I don't know what about it doesn't look like the old colors, but it doesn't. And so he wasn't pressed on this, but he did hint that some of the old with the new would be brought back, and exactly when or what that is or what it may be is apparently coming. So, those casual conversations that I've had are also on the mark. The question is like, I don't know when or what. So that's the part where I'm stepping back and saying, I'll let them make their own announcements about what that is, because I actually don't know. I literally was just speculating, like, this is what I do hear talked about. And I don't know when they would do that, but I think that it will happen one of these days. You'll see different uniforms, but to what degree, I don't really know. And I guess we'll find out later this year, next year, whenever they actually do it.
I sniffed this out last week. I think not even really trying to respond to anything, but looking at some of the other rebrands that have happened around the league, go look at the Broncos. The Broncos dropped their whole entire new uniform set, white, blue, orange, throwback jersey. This team launched with a burgundy, a white, and a black jersey. That means there's room for one more jersey, whether it's an alternate or a throwback, whatever. So I sniffed that out real quick last week. There is room for them to add one jersey like the other teams in the league. And that's where it makes sense. If they were going to go to an alternate, they could add that. To the talk of the old and new branding mix, it's really funny too. They did it this year. They added the gold pants right before the season started. Like, yes. That should have been your first hint too of, oh, Commanders is here. They wouldn't be tweaking the uniform like that unless they were actually saying, how do we improve this moving forward instead of scrapping the whole entire thing? Like, that look actually looked really good too. I thought that was their best look this season, was the burgundy jersey.
I thought that was their best look. It was homage to the past. I know it wasn't something that, like, the funny part was that's not a look that they actually did a lot of with the old look with the burgundy and gold pants. But this was the first, like, the best we can do with what we have to kind of look like ourselves from yesteryear was to do this. And that also it was a nod to the past. And I know, listen to this group. It's important to them. It is.
Yes, exactly. And so I'm saying here, like, they already tweaked it. Like you're already like people are already forgetting. Literally right before the season started, they went and added something to the uniforms as an homage to the past. Like they are already going down this track, this pathway of tweaking things to look like the old way. And look, I think that when we go back and look at and do the Zapruder film of 2/2/22, I think that's going to be the biggest thing about that day was those jerseys were a shock. Like both of them. And the,
Yes.
you know, you and me weren't surprised about the alternate. We thought they were overdue for some kind of modern alternate jersey. And that one to me is fine. Look behind my shoulder. But when those burgundy and white jerseys hit, I remember texting you being like, this is kind of a mess. Like these do not look classic. They're all over the place. Neither jersey matches up perfectly with the other. This was the first thing I knew they would probably try to clean up. And it sounds like that's what they're going to try and do moving forward.
Yeah. I didn't. Yeah. It's so odd. Like everyone kept telling me it's the exact same colors and it just doesn't look like it. Like I don't know. It doesn't.
It's because the yellow makes the burgundy pop differently than the white with the burgundy. Like it's like a little bit of a like Mandela effect. It's the same burgundy jersey, but that much yellow makes it look completely different than if you just put the white jersey. No, it's just
it's like that. What was the old is this dress blue or yellow?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that because of the way that there's a different color. It's just I'm with you though. What you're spot on though is it does look different. Like that's the problem. Like that should have been a part of when they made the uniforms was, oh, this doesn't look the same. So yeah.
So we'll see what they do. Again, I'm not reporting that they're doing anything. I do think though that like eventually, and that could be this year and it could be next year, whenever, that is something that's going to change. And I don't know exactly to what, and I don't know how much of an old look will it look like, or if it's just literally tweaks to it to try to like to a nod to the past. I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm just giving you informed speculation. That's it. And just please stop sending me emails about Redskins. It's not happening.
Correct. One thing I do want to say this too, because I saw a little discussion on Reddit. People were talking about buying their Jaden Daniels jerseys and people that waited or didn't wait because if there is a possible new look on the way or whatever. People, I'm here to tell you, as somebody that follows gear, there are so many Jaden Daniels jerseys out. Your jersey's worth about $20 the second you walk out of the store. Buy what you want. Like, don't wait. If you like the jersey now, buy it. If you don't like it, wait. I don't know what to tell you, but your jerseys aren't worth anything. So, like, just buy whatever you want. Like, it's a used car.
If you have the one he wore when he threw the Hail Mary, it's worth something. But outside of that,
right. Like if you have a gamer, that's totally different. But I'm here to tell you,
one he was wearing when he threw the Hail Mary, that might be worth something.
Yeah. Like all of his gamers, trust me, are worth thousands upon thousands of dollars. I've seen some of his gear already go for an absorbent amount of money. But like people, it's replicas. They're not worth anything down the line. So just buy whatever you want, is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Anyways,
so we're through this. Please don't send me your weird messages again. I like talking to all of you. But to those of you in the faction of Redskins Forever, I'm sorry you don't like what I have to say. And now you've heard the owner say it. So thankfully, I don't have to field questions about something that I have no say in anymore. He does. And he told you what the score is. And that's sorry if that's what you don't like to hear.
Here's another thing, too. No one says you can't wear the old gear and still support the team. Like, I saw so much Redskins gear last year. I was wearing a Redskins jersey throughout the playoff run because it was my quote-unquote lucky one. Like, no one's saying they're taking their gear away from you. We even saw over the weekend, you and I haven't even discussed this, like, they launched a whole new Sean Taylor line with Mitchell and Ness over the weekend. And you know what? They were showing the Redskins logo on those shirts and that gear, which is something you and I talked about earlier this season where I think it was the Darryl Green stuff that launched that they were covering up. And you and I were even kind of like, that's a little much. And then they backtracked that. Like the team's not trying to erase the logo. They're trying to navigate the space at the moment. And even this weekend, I went, great. There's a whole new Sean Taylor line and there's all Redskins logos on it. Like they're finally like trying to thread that needle of honoring the past and going into the future, but still selling some of that stuff too. And they already are. So.
They also, and I think this needs to be pointed out, they hired a new team president. He just started like a week ago. Like, That was the other thing when I mentioned that last week, and that just didn't resonate with anybody. I'm like, you realize the person who's kind of in charge of greenlighting any decision like this to put in front of the ownership started a week ago.
Right.
You don't think a crazy person would walk in the door and go, and this is my grand idea. I've been thinking about this forever. So be patient. These things will happen. Jersey tweaks I didn't even know why that was news. That's like normal now in the NFL that teams kind of change their looks around. So I was surprised that it circulated like that. Anyway, I appreciate you attributing my name to things like this, but I wasn't reporting anything. That was the weirdest part of it. Was if anyone actually listened to the show, you'd hear that I was just speculating if they were to do something, that's what I think they would do, but I don't even know when, which turned into a report. I said that they're changing things. No, I didn't. And everywhere I went, people were like, what are they changing it to? And I'm like, nobody listens to any of this. It's very quaint that we've gotten to the point now where the internet has taken things where it's quaint for the idea for someone to say to them, just go listen to the whole thing, because I think you'll hear it's not what that headline represented, but nobody did that.
Yeah,
nobody did that. So anyway, let's see. On the stadium update is there's no stadium update, which is DC has the land now because the federal government did pass the bill to allow them to do what they want to do with the RFK site. To this point, and at least yesterday, unless he was not revealing very much, he basically, Harris, stated that they haven't decided, quote, what they want to do with it yet. Now, we know that Muriel Bowser wants it to be a stadium and whatever else could go around it. The city council, I haven't heard weigh in too much. A couple of the members, sure, and a couple members I haven't heard from. So there will be some resistance, obviously, to that. If it were to go through to a stadium, what would it look like? How would the funding work, et cetera, et cetera? He did, Josh Harris, at least admit that they're down the line of having conversations about what financially, who would be responsible for what and what would be necessary, but he didn't, and I thought this was smart, not reveal any of those conversations. He described it as premature to get out in front of that and say, we want this from taxpayers or they want that or whatever it may be. None of that's happening. He did credit the governor of Maryland, I thought purposefully, to say, I appreciate that you got out of the way to let RFK get to the table. And I think Wes Moore's position is, please don't leave us in the dust and leave us with a white elephant off of the Beltway. And, this ownership group will have to prove whether they're going to keep their promises, because that's basically the one thing that he said was, if we end up in DC, we're not going to screw you over, to whatever that means. So there is no update at this point, but he did stick to the timeline of, we'd like to see something open by 2030. Do the math. It's 2025. You've got to get legislation through. That's going to take through the course of this year alone. It's then going to take another year to get through all the things that need to happen just to build the thing. And that leaves them 1 to 3 years to get the thing up and open. And that sounds about right. So I think we'll hear some news at some point this year about which jurisdiction is where they're going to put it. And then, as he learned and talked about a little bit, the 76ers were trying to build a stadium in the middle of Philadelphia. That looked like it was happening for a very long time. It suddenly is not happening at all, and things change. So, and we've lived with this forever. Just because that RFK law went through, I've talked about this forever. I've never thought it was going to happen because of the million hurdles they have to jump through. They got over a big one this past cycle with the federal government, but it doesn't mean that it's over yet. So I'm hoping we have some resolution in this calendar year with either DC or Maryland. And I thought it was interesting. He never even brought up Virginia. So it looks like it's a 2 jurisdiction race.
Well, he did bring up Virginia in a way by saying they were going to continue to invest in Ashburn. I thought that was actually an important statement.
But when the stadium stuff came up, he never at any point in time said anything about any interest by them to get into a race with Maryland and DC for it.
But I think, like, you and I have had the discussion how many times over the last 3 or 4 years where we've said Virginia might just be satisfied with having the team there. And he even mentioned something, we're going to keep investing in Ashburn to keep our coaches and players happy. Like, he went as far as to say, like, that kind of just seems like it's going to be here to stay, which my speculation was always there's not going to be a white elephant in Landover because maybe that's where the new facility goes. That sounds like that's not even an option right now. So I will say, like, that mention means that Virginia at least will have the team practicing there, which, that's a good tax, break for all of them, that they'll get, not a tax break, but tax money for them in Nova. When it comes to, the DC versus Maryland thing, I think this was, he didn't say it directly. I'm just kind of reading into how he said this. I've said this to you for years too. Maryland's number one thing to hold over DC is they're going, guys, we can break ground tomorrow. We can give you a piece of land in PG County that's a little bit south of the stadium, and we could start building literally tomorrow. I think this is Harris finally kind of drawing another line in the sand of going, we want it to be, at the RFK site, but you know what? If we don't get this thing rolling this year, I have to make a decision to build a new stadium at some point, and it sounds like the ball will start to get rolling if things get bleak in DC, that maybe it goes to Maryland and that PG County site. So that's how I kind of felt about it. And I felt about this for years now is there just has to be a point where if Harris can't get the DC site to build an RFK, build on RFK, he's got to make a decision at some point to build a new stadium, just period. Like, he can't wait around for this thing. So I think that's what he was kind of saying yesterday too.
He also cited multiple times on surveys with fans that they want it there.
Of course.
He didn't say that explicitly, but hinted that that's where they want it. With surveys, they want it there, which is, I don't think he was purposefully putting political pressure on the DC government and decision makers, but he kind of was by saying, everybody does want it here, and we do want to give our fans the building they want where they want it, but you got to help us do this. And so, I mean, like, it's not like this is, they could have started a project in Maryland 5 years ago if they really wanted to. The previous ownership could have. The new ownership could have, the second they walked in the door and said, we need a new stadium here. I'm not going to invest in this. We'll do what we can to fix it up, but we're building something immediately now. And Westmore would have been like, great. And they would have done it. So we all know what the score is here. They're trying to get the RFK site. But I do think while there is no clock, as Jerry likes to say, there is no clock. I think in this case, there is a little bit. So we'll see what happens this year.
One thing on this too is it is Harris too laying the groundwork of, hey fans, I have heard you on this one. I am trying to go where we all want to go. So don't put it on me if it doesn't happen. He's laying that groundwork too, as he should. So I think there's a little bit of that too.
All right, let me take a quick break. Brad wants to show ESPN 630 the Sports Capital.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality bikes, which might lead to another discovery. Getting back on the saddle isn't always comfortable. Good news is Sierra has massage guns. And chafe wipes, too. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Build a routine with Ollie that supports your wellness needs, like getting your daily vitamins and minerals with Ollie's multi-gummies, or keeping your mood upbeat with all the vitamin D in Hello Happy. Give your gut health some support with probiotics, and wake up feeling refreshed after taking Ollie Sleep. Do wellness on your terms. Find Ollie at a Walmart or Target near you or at ollie.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
All right, welcome back. One of the other things that was brought up, and it wasn't brought up a lot because the stadium and the name and the branding all really kind of took up most of the press conference with Josh Harris on Monday. But will the team spend? He didn't answer that question, really. Everything that they've shown so far is yes, they're willing to do that. The first major move that they made outside of re-signing Sam Cosmi was to go get Marshawn Lattimore, and his contract is, for $18 million over the next 2 years. So they spent for a top tier corner. Hopefully he'll be a top tier corner next year. And so when asked though, like, off of the success of this year and you got a rookie quarterback, do you see the opportunity? And he kind of vaguely said yes. And they do have a lot of cap space. And so far they've only preached they want to win, and the opportunity to go improve the team is in front of them with cap room, drafts, the draft status. the as Adam Schefter kind of put it earlier the year, the viability of people wanting to come here, which is very different than what it used to be. At least like what you'd hear about whether people would want to come here or not, that people are vying to come here. So my guess is they will. And I assume like Adam Peters has been very careful up until Lattimore about doing anything that kind of puts any kind of real money on anybody, like moving forward. Let's see if that changes now that they're coming off an NFC Championship appearance. And I think the ownership will say, we'll greenlight that stuff, but we'll find out this spring.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume, especially with a rookie quarterback that demonstrated he is very, very good, obviously, this is the time to spend before you have to pay him. And yeah, it's ridiculous talking about it. Like, welcome to the modern NFL now, where you have to take advantage of a rookie contract. That's just the name of the game now. And so I would assume Adam Peters is just saying to Harris, whether he, agrees with it or not, is probably just saying out loud, this is the time to kind of, go all in and spend some money, because we can surround this guy with more talent before we've got to pay him 4 years down the line with real actual money, with how well he is playing within the confines of a rookie contract.
Yes. So what that leads to the name that came up yesterday, which is Myles Garrett publicly stated he wants a trade from Cleveland. Myles Garrett represents one of the three positions that I would say are definitive needs. Not that anybody wouldn't want him. He's a ridiculous talent. But like for Washington, Dallas, I'm sure would like to have him, but they have Micah Parsons. Like Pittsburgh, I'm sure would like to have him, but they have TJ Watt. We don't have this person. We need to spend, in my opinion, on three specific areas to improve the team, and whether they can pull this off, we'll see. They need an edge rusher, him. They need offensive linemen, period, like multiple, in my opinion, 2 minimum, depending on Cosme's health and when his return is going to be, 2 minimum. And they need, as I'll describe it, an explosive playmaker. And I don't really care at which skill position it is, whether it's Jahmyr Gibbs in their running back spot, or a receiver opposite Terry, or a tight end who could be an explosive playmaker. They need at least one to come from one of those positions. I think it would then kind of guide them on decisions on people like Brian Robinson, Zach Ertz, others, where I'd love to have those guys back. But if there is a playmaking option that upgrades the explosiveness of the offense altogether, then you just make tough decisions. This one to me is a no-brainer if he's available, and if the price isn't absurd. I think this is one where I'd go, call me interested in this. Like, he is definitively one of the 5 best rush ends in the NFL. It doesn't look like he's slowing down at all. He doesn't have an injury history. I think we got to find out what the asking price is and whether we can get in on that.
No, I agree. They need to be in these discussions. I just wonder what the price is going to be. And obviously, I know a guy of his caliber is going to cost a good amount. You also run into the problem now that you're good, that your first round pick this year is, I don't want to call it useless, but it's basically a second round pick, essentially, right? So how much more the Browns going to ask for, with that first round pick? That's what worries me here, is a bad team can really kind of step up here, and they're going to, not a bad team, but a team with a better first rounder is going to go ahead and probably be of more value than this year with the Commanders. They should be in these discussions. I don't know how much it's going to cost. Also, does Adam Peters, does he kind of value these drafts still while they still have so many holes? I think that's a legitimate question here as well. Like, would he rather draft to fill in more of the roster than get Myles Garrett? I don't know. I think there's arguments on both sides of that one, but you and I both know they not only need some premier starters, they also need depth. Like, they got kind of lucky last year that their depth wasn't really tested. It was tested in parts, but as a whole team, it really wasn't. So what does Peters value more here? I think is the real question.
Where they're picking. And again, I need to get a little more information from the people who follow the draft closely, but my gut feel is this is not a very good draft that we're walking into. And if you're telling me 29 and some other pick gets me Myles Garrett, I'm doing that. But that's where I am on it. Garrett can control this process a little bit because his contract is pretty unwieldy. So whoever acquires him is going to want to restructure it with him.
Yep.
And so this is where he can say to certain teams, I'm not doing that for you, and therefore derail the trade talk. Would he be open to coming here? Well, it sounds like a lot of guys would be open to coming here. So this is what's different about this in these times. So let's see. But, if you're asking me my opinion on it, I think they should be calling Cleveland and finding out what the price is and seeing if Garrett's people are open to a move here, because he is exactly what this defense needs heading into next season.
This is also a factor here, too, that we haven't been a part of this in a while. You need to actually be in these talks, too, because I think two of the teams that you're going to have to go through next year will also be talking to them about him, and that's the Eagles and the Lions. I think both of those teams are going to be calling Cleveland as well, because we saw what happened with the Lions. They actually traded for Zadarius Smith at the deadline and got him from the Browns, right? And then they didn't have an answer with Hutchinson out. So they're going, we could go all in and have Hutchinson and Garrett for a couple of years. Then you have the Eagles, who I looked up yesterday. 3 of their pass rushers are going to be up for free agents this year as well. So they could actually make a move like this, and they have cap room as well. So I think you need to be in these talks too, because if one of those two teams makes it, that could be a difference maker for you in the playoffs next year as well. So they really actually have to be on top of this. We're in a new era here where I'm worrying about the other NFC contenders, because we're in that category too. So, yeah.
Well, the Eagles, for crying out loud, they're paying nobody on defense.
Yep.
So they could do something like this.
Yep.
Like easily could go do something like this. Like they're still 2 to 3 years away from having to pay Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, even longer for Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Like they're in an incredible spot with the defensive players that they have. And it'd be scary for them to add something like this and full on go over the top. The other name that's out there is Cooper Kupp, because he announced publicly that the Rams told him that they are going to try to trade him. On this one, he would be an upgrade for sure. I'd want to know the price, and I'd want to know his contractual obligations. He's been hurt a little bit last couple of years. I think he'd be a massive upgrade from what we have currently opposite of Terry, but I'm not too bullish about it. It would have to be, to me, it'd have to just make a lot of sense for us to go after him. That's how I feel about him.
No, I agree. Like, this is the same one. I think you call him up, but you're not like enamored by Cooper Kupp. I'd like for them to get younger at that position. And so I know they need to get better, period. That's when I just want to know the asking price for. And it's really weird when a team like the Rams that are so offensively focused with McVay, they come out this fast and say that they're trying to trade him. I just think it's a little bit of a red flag for me. So cautiously optimistic if they were to acquire him. But I have a lot of questions on that one, more than Garrett, obviously.
I think it reads to me like they don't think he can stay healthy.
Yeah,
that's what it reads to me, but I don't really know. And for all the people, I saw these people with the Ravens like tweeting, like, go get him. I'm like, that's a really bad fit. He's an upgrade for you, but let me tell you something. Like, this guy's a precise route runner, and your quarterback is not a precise route thrower.
Yeah,
like that. You actually need receivers that are kind of flexible and move around and find spots. And that ain't him. Like, he's you kind of can't cover him because he runs the perfect route on you. And that's why you need the Matthew Staffords of the world that throw the ball exactly where they're saying they're going to throw the ball, as opposed to the guy who, hey, just run down there and I'll find you. And I don't think that's going to work out. But you guys do you up there.
Yeah.
All right, quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630 Sports Capital.
Since you're new to H&R Block, we'll look at your returns from the last 3 years for any money your last guy might have missed for free.
I could get money back from last year?
You could. We'll find any mistakes.
Could have really used that 2 years ago when I dated that mistake for 5 months.
Don't leave money on the table. Switch to H&R Block and get a free second look review. Second look is included at no additional cost with the purchase of tax preparation. Results vary. All tax situations are different. Fees apply if you have us file an amended return.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
All right, welcome back. So day one down here in New Orleans, everybody was talking about an NBA trade. I mean, it's impossible not to. It's one of the few times that like the Super Bowl got superseded by something, mainly because the trade is so practically unbelievable and feels like a stunt. Like it doesn't even feel real. I think I saw Sham say something on ESPN that he thought he didn't want to report it because he was pretty sure that it wasn't real. And then I read a piece I haven't read the whole thing yet, from Ramona Shelburne, who gets always the backstory of all this stuff. And I guess her thing started like a month ago. And the real damning line is the GM of the Mavericks called Rob Pelinka, GM of the Lakers, said, I want to meet with you, talk to you. They met in some coffee shop. And the damning line in it was, if he was going to do this, it was going to be for the deal he wanted, which means this particular person thinks this was the best deal to do this. And it all acknowledges the fan backlash, the public backlash, the criticism. Like they're fully aware that doing this is full on nuts, and it's gonna start a chain reaction amidst everybody who thinks you're the craziest person on earth. Like this guy is going to be, if this doesn't work out, and it won't, he's going to be a joke in terms of like running a basketball organization. He's going to become what? Matt Millen, like of basketball. Like, what are you, like the what are you doing person of all time? And to sit there like that part of it, because I was like, I can't believe they didn't just go, we're trading him, and see what the offers were, and just say, this is what we're doing. We just decided we're going to see what the offers were. And because the offer that they would have gotten, in my opinion, would have been 50 times better than what they took. To actually sit there and say, or he didn't say it, but like that's what's insinuated here, is this is actually the deal he wanted, makes it sound even more nuts than it already was.
No, I was listening to Tim McMahon on Unsportsmanlike yesterday, and he said that basically there were more first-round picks involved in this trade, but the Lakers told the Mavericks, oh, well, we're incurring a risk here between the weight and like drinking maybe a little bit too much or whatever the things are. And so they actually took away from the package and convinced the Mavericks that they were taking on a risk. Like, that's Jedi mind tricks, period. Like, I can't believe we're still like talking about the value, and that's the trade that he wanted. No chance that was the initial trade. There should have been 3 first-round picks minimum attached to Luka compared to what else they got for him.
I was not surprised that Cuban distanced himself from it and said, I'm not dealing with day-to-day basketball operations. And like, so he's probably embarrassed,
Yes.
Like how can he not be embarrassed? He sold the team. The first big thing they do is this.
Right.
Like, trade away a generational player that fell in your lap. Guys.
I mean,
so
the other thing I had landed on with this guy too was, okay, if all the things I said were true, that maybe he had a little bit of a drinking problem, maybe he was overweight, maybe he was treating the staff poorly, whatever. You know what? Superstars sometimes aren't the nicest people in the world, and you just kind of got to grin and bear it and do the best you can in a situation too. Like, that's where like none of these things were so egregious that you trade a guy who led the league in scoring last year. That's where I keep landing. None of these were that egregious.
This guy, the night before a game against the Mavericks, is going to drink all smart water, and he's going to score 90 on them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right. Yeah.
He will haunt them until the end of time.
Yep. Right.
This is, I think, until proven otherwise, the dumbest trade I've ever heard of in my life.
Correct.
Any sport, period.
I don't know, like the Deshaun Watson ones, it's going up there as
the
worst
okay.
trade ever. Like, I will just say
of
that.
modern
like,
trade, this and the Watson ones are the two.
Like, the Lakers did not hand him a $245 million fully guaranteed contract. So
yeah. Well, from Cleveland side, Houston actually made out with this. They actually got a great package back.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. I'll give you that.
All right. Talk to you tomorrow. Bram watches Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.